What is data gathering, data collection? Hello, and welcome back. So far, my colleagues Martin and Vic have taken you through some very comprehensive sections, teaching you all about Python and its nuts and bolts. You've been treated with excellent overviews of NumPy, pandas, list comprehensions, and how to work with text files and their contents. You've also worked with and imported data in the form of JSON and CSV files. However, you've probably wondered all along, where do these files come from? After all, data doesn't grow on trees, right? Well, in this lesson, we'll find the answer, as we'll discuss data collection and how it connects to this course. All right. As a data analyst, obtaining high-quality data should be the first thing on your list. Without it, your hands are cuffed. Therefore, data gathering is a crucial topic. To kick this off, let's start with some high-level classification. In general, data can be classified into two types, primary and secondary. A non-professional way to define primary data is to call it data you've created. For instance, if you are conducting a survey or a questionnaire, the respondents answer some questions, right? The fact that you are conducting this survey means you are creating the data. Other people are answering, but you are the one asking the questions and collecting the answers. In a business context, companies create data all the time. Storing numeric information about sales operations, changing inventory, and filling out the accounting ledger are all instances of primary data. It's information that does not exist in any form prior to this moment. Obtaining primary data might seem easy on paper. However, it's often not the case in practice. Having access to its source is actually very rare. Even if you do, the data may have been collected only for the last couple of years. After all, digitalization and data collection became big with companies just recently with the rise of data science. Luckily, there's an alternative if you can't obtain primary data. And you guessed it, it's called secondary data. Secondary data is already existing data that somebody else has gathered and organized, not yourself. And it is much more common to have access to it instead of primary data. Unless your area of interest is extremely obscure, I can say for certain that someone on the internet possesses the information you seek. They might not be giving it away for free, or it could be spread out over a couple of different datasets, but it's most probably out there. Either way, it's important to realize that primary and secondary sources of data are relative terms. All of the datasets that you've seen and used in this course are secondary data for you. However, from our point of view, some are primary because we've created them, and others are secondary because we've acquired them from a third party. All right. Now, you all know how to download a CSV or an Excel file, don't you? But how do you obtain data which is online but is not packaged in a downloadable file? Well, there are two popular methods for that, web scraping and APIs. Let's start with web scraping. This is the technique of extracting information programmatically from websites. It's what Google does all the time to determine the type and content of a web page. In essence, the method boils down to requesting the web page from a server and then extracting the relevant data from the HTML document that is sent to you. You may have already seen such scrapers in action. For instance, some websites that monitor the subscriber count of YouTube channels live manage that through web scraping. They simply request the page and extract the value of interest, all with a Python script. There are a couple of obstacles, though, associated with this method of obtaining data. The first disadvantage is that this technique is not easily scalable and reliable. Since it depends on the specific structure of the HTML, you need to write a different program for each individual page you would like to scrape. Moreover, small changes or updates to the code of the page can break already existing scrapers, so constant maintenance may be required. The second problem concerns the legal side of things. In general, websites are intended to be used by real people only. Bot activity does not really benefit the website owner at all. In fact, bots can overload the servers much faster and easier than a person could, and thus actively contribute to higher costs for the owner. Given that, a lot of websites forbid web scraping on their pages, especially if they contain valuable information. If you disregard this ban, you may get yourself in court. Of course, nobody wants to get to that point. What may further complicate such a situation today is the fact that some laws are ambiguous when it comes to web scraping. It's not clear whether extracting data with the means of automation is legal or not, given that this data is public. These are new waters, and the law is still maturing in this regard. Still, and I can't stress this highly enough, it's not advisable to proceed with scraping if the website explicitly prohibits it. Despite all this, considerate web scraping is an important tool in data collection when all other options or imminent prosecutions are off the table. Due to these aspects and the fact that extensive HTML knowledge is required, web scraping is out of the scope of this course. Instead, we've decided to devote our attention to the other popular method of data gathering, APIs. APIs are the bridges of the digital world. They're designed specifically for programmatical data exchange. This means that the workflow and all related systems are streamlined and easy to use. Since the modern internet economy is practically based on this automated data exchange, there's an abundance and wide variety of APIs. They can provide data in all kinds of areas in many different formats, the most popular of which are JSON and CSV. Generally, working as a data analyst will always entail the acquisition of data. Importing a file to your program will provide a snapshot of the situation at the time of the creation of that file. APIs provide a programmatical way to receive the latest data at any time. Imagine how cool it would be to create a Python notebook which pre-processes data fed from an API. Each time you run the code, it would dynamically download the latest data and transform it exactly as you intended the first time. And provided that you are granted the relevant access, it is all legal. This brings us to the fact that in contrast to scraping, using an API requires very little support. All of the support burden lies with the creator of the API, as an API needs to be maintained and kept running 24/7. That's the reason why a significant portion of the APIs are paid services. Nevertheless, there are lots of free ones out there, as, contrary to the popular belief, the internet is full of generous people. Fantastic! In the next section, we'll take a closer look at APIs, how they work, and how they could be useful to us. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.